What's taking Onyx so long? Not only is Onyx at around 140 million market cap, which means that it's still around 7 times away than its peak last year, but also on top of that, around 3 weeks ago, Onyx said that, what do you think Onyx will ship next? And beside that, they put soon. So we have not seen, I guess, an update in regard to that because we don't really know what they're going to be launching. But also on top of that, people have been wondering, why is it still so low in terms of the price charts? And I'll discuss my rationale when it comes to this in today's video, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything and nothing I say is financial advice. So I first want to break down that post, which is of course in regard to the fundamentals when it comes to Onyx. They said, again, what do you think Onyx will ship next? And they put an emoji beside it, which said soon. Now, when it comes to this, people like to say, well, this was announced like around 3 weeks ago. What's going on? But to me, when it comes to Onyx, when they usually have things launched, like for instance, Onyx Mesh or the Onyx Layer 1 in terms of the mainnet, it's usually done with a higher degree of quality, right? And with a higher degree of quality, typically what happens is that it takes time. So in which case, we don't know what they're going to be shipping next when it comes to this. But one thing we do know, though, is that they have a track record and a history of doing things with a high quality. And when they actually launch things, it's typically already well polished and well thought out. So again, was it a little bit overly enthusiastic on their part announcing what they will be shipping next around 3 weeks ago? No, not necessarily, because this kind of fits in line with Onyx's usual timeline in a sense where, remember last year when they said they were going to be launching the mainnet when it comes to the Onyx Layer 1 in 2026. Now, last year it seemed like a very long time. It's like, wow, they have to wait until 2026. Like, what the? But then it did happen in 2026, and they took their time, but we saw the quality there, right? And not only do we see the quality, but 10% of gas fees when it comes to Onyx are literally burned, and then Onyx is used for gas fees on the layer 1. So it wasn't such a bad thing, in my opinion, seeing that wait, I suppose. And also, they took quite a while to launch Onyx Mesh, which I don't mind either, because Onyx Mesh, it basically allows institutions or enterprises to actually literally still use the Onyx Layer 1, but at the same time not have all of the stuff out there be public, right? They want sometimes, in the case of enterprises, to have things be private and also some things to be public. And basically, Onyx Mesh gives this hybrid sort of system or this hybrid sort of option where these enterprises can still adopt blockchain technology, more specifically in the case of the Onyx Layer 1, but then not have everything out there be public, right? They still want things sometimes to be private. So that's what Onyx Mesh allows enterprises to do, which inherently could help increase Onyx's presence in the case of institutions, because through that, enterprises are going to be maybe more inclined or more willing to actually maybe adopt something like the Onyx Layer 1 in a pure hypothetical. So again, we've seen the track record of Onyx taking quite a while to do things. So around 3 weeks ago, them making a teaser of sorts to kind of showcase that they might be shipping something soon, it's not necessarily like, oh wow, they failed at it and there was a delay. No, not really. This is kind of in line with the usual wait time that we see Onyx, launch things, in which case they make like a teaser and then maybe it might be months later before they actually launch it. So it fits in line. But I think when they do this type of stuff, what they mean is actually something serious. They actually have an intent when they make a post like this, and they don't have a track record or a history of doing pranks, because we do know some other projects out there that like to do pranks, right? They say, we're going to be launching this, we're going to be launching that. Then we hear nothing. Like literally, we don't know what they're trying to even do. They just do it for fun. But when it comes to Onyx, they don't have a track record of doing that. They said that they were going to be launching the mainnet when it comes to the layer 1, when it comes to their blockchain, right? They did it. They said they were going to be launching something, and it ended up being Onyx Mesh. So what is this going to be? Only time will tell, but usually they take their time, and usually when they do it, there's actual quality there. So I'm not concerned when it comes to this. So yes, it may seem kind of long in a sense, but it's not too long considering the historical track record of Onyx, if that kind of makes sense. But I digress. Now let's go to the second part. People like to say, well, Onyx currently is around 7 times away than its peak last year, because the peak last year in terms of market cap was around $1 billion. So naturally, of course, because Onyx has a current market cap of around 140 million, it may seem like, wow, this is still around 7 times away. This is so bad. But here's the thing. This is kind of in tune with a bunch of other projects out there as of right now, like in a sense where many projects out there are still down around 7 times, 5 times or whatever, when comparatively speaking to their peak last year and also even the year before. But Onyx, the most impressive peak as of late was in 2025, in which the market cap was around $1 billion. Now, what is taking so long? It's the market sentiment overall. People sometimes like to tell me, well, if Onyx is doing so good, if they're planning to launch things, why is the price low? Well, it's because a project doing good, it almost doesn't really matter what it does, kind of, when it comes to this space. If the market overall is doing bad, it just simply won't do much. The charts is affected by demand, the market overall sentiment, not affected quite necessarily always by the fundamentals of a project. But why do I want to focus on the fundamentals nonetheless? Well, it's because that's typically what's going to allow a project to survive for the long term anyways. And survival when it comes to projects within this space is often very crucial. We see a lot of projects out there come and go. So especially someone like me who is in this space and is willing to be in this space for the long haul, longevity matters a lot to me, which is why I focus so much on the fundamentals, because usually projects with a good use case don't typically get left behind and get forgotten about. That's what I've seen historically. So that's why I focus so much on the fundamentals, even though I also care about the charts. But I'm just saying the fundamentals is what I want to focus on, just because I am so willing to wait for the long haul. That's my mindset. So that's why I focus so much on the fundamentals. But again, regardless, when it comes to Onyx being around 7 times away from its peak last year, is that necessarily a bad thing though? Well, not for me, because I'm willing to wait, and if it just goes back to its peak last year, keep in mind, we're around 7 times away, right? Bitcoin is not 7 times away from its peak last year. For Bitcoin to be 7 times away than its peak last year, Bitcoin would have to go a lot lower. I'm not joking. Bitcoin's around like 2 times away from its peak last year, not 7 times, let alone like 5 or 4 times. No way. It's just not. Onyx is around 7 times away though from its peak last year, but I'm just saying that's what I realized. So personally, when it comes to this space, what's taking so long? Well, the market overall isn't doing the best, so it may seem kind of long, but need I remind people, in the past week, right, Onyx recovered around 25%, and that kind of happened like that. Out of nowhere, it happened quite quickly. And that's not even during an altcoin season. During an altcoin season, like an actual full-on altcoin season, sometimes around a 25% recovery doesn't take a week. Sometimes it's just like hours, we've seen in some other cases. But sometimes it happens quite randomly, which is why I don't want to guess and I don't want to find the perfect time. I'm just holding. That's it. I don't want to try to find the perfect moment. I'm just waiting. That's it. So what we saw around a week ago, it seemed like hypothetically just a small taste in my opinion, because during an altcoin season, we've seen those figures, like those numbers, happen in a much shorter time frame. That's just what I realized, right? Now, personally, I am dollar cost averaging 12 times a year. So what does that mean? I approximately dollar cost average once a month. That's it. Now, it may seem really boring, but just because I'm holding the entire time, if the market happens to do something, it's just like kind of automatically going along with the ride. It's like, for instance, let's say there's a dock, right? Like a bay of sorts. And then let's say I have 10 ships. Now, do I know when the tide is going to rise? Let's say in a pure hypothetical. If let's say I didn't know when it was going to rise, then no, right? If I don't know, then I won't know. But one thing I do know though is that, as the saying goes, a high tide raises all ships. So, because I have all these ships parked, if the tide happens to rise, it's kind of like just going along like that with the ride, if that kind of makes sense. But in this case, I don't know when the tide will come, if that kind of makes sense, because when it comes to this space, I don't know when the tide will rise, in a sense where I don't know exactly when the market's going to recover. But one thing I do know, though, is that I'm waiting, hypothetically, just in case. Even though I don't have to, but that's just my mindset. And that's just what I'm doing as of right now. So what's taking so long when it comes to Onyx? Well, the market isn't doing the best, but I don't mind waiting for quite a while anyways. And when it comes to what they're planning to launch, allegedly soon, when people like to say, wow, it's taking so long, not really, when you consider the average timeline of Onyx usually announcing things and then comparing it to when they actually launch it, sometimes there's seemingly a delay, but that's just their usual work time. So it's nothing that I'm concerned with. So yeah, what's taking so long? Just basically normal stuff when it comes to Onyx. Nothing unusually long, at least in my opinion. And a bunch of other projects are also not doing good. So it's not only just Onyx. People could also arguably say, hey, what's taking so long with Bitcoin or Ethereum, you know? So it's kind of no different here. It's just how the space is. It could take years, maybe, in some cases. But I don't mind waiting. However, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, and I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward. So I want to say thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and I hope you all have a very spectacular day. It's been Lee the Captain.